Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is Faith with the Mental Health Association of Central Florida. And I'm very excited to talk to you guys today to have our guest here, Lindsay Kincaide, a licensed mental health counselor in the Central Florida area. And we're actually here today, given that it's the month of June, to talk about honoring Pride Month, especially during this time. So with that being said, Lindsay, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So can you go ahead and give us just a little bit of background about yourself, just for our viewers who may not be familiar with your name or anything?
Absolutely. My name is Lindsay Kincaide. I'm a licensed mental health counselor here in Central Florida. I practice out of Winter Park. I'm a member of the LGBTQ community and have been an advocate for LGBTQ mental health and public health, particularly in the HIV sector, for the last 6 or so years since becoming, since graduating and getting involved in the field. So I'm very happy to be here to be talking about this really important subject today. So thank you.
Of course. Thank you so much for being here. So I think I'll kind of start everything that kind of when we start talking about this topic, one of the things I want to make sure we mention is everything that's going on right now. It's not just a normal month of June. I mean, I think I can say the understatement of the year is that 2020 has been just different because we've had COVID-19, we've had quarantine, and now we're actually really experiencing a massive civil rights movement with everything that's going on within the last few weeks here in the USA. And so I want to ask you, how does Pride Month, the month of June, kind of play into that?
Absolutely. It's really important that we acknowledge that we are in the middle of a really unprecedented public health event that's affected us financially, medically, our mental health, our ability to connect. And we're also in this incredibly important moment, ongoing moment in the civil rights movement here in the United States. And all of those things, as well as our unique experience as LGBTQ people, particularly in Central Florida with the Memorial of the Pulse shooting, all of this comes together and affects the way we experience this time. And it's certainly going to affect the way we experience the concept of Pride Month. And I tend to think of honoring Pride as a very individualized experience to begin with, even without all of what 2020 has layered on top of it, that there's a lot of nuances to how somebody might experience or celebrate or honor Pride. Some of the factors that I really think are relevant to that conversation are how out a person is, both to themselves, that's the first coming out experience, and then to other people. What access you might have to LGBT community and spaces, whether it's remote, digitally, or in person. How safe you feel participating in those types of events. And certainly the topics that we're being addressed right now, COVID, the civil rights movement, those can all affect our feelings of safety, particularly in public spaces. How accepted you feel in the LGBT community, and not everyone does feel accepted. And this is where we as an LGBT community are confronting our own racism, prejudice, biases within our community and addressing them to create safer spaces so that all people feel included. So to begin with, it's an individualized experience that each person needs to know how they feel about it and what degree they want to participate. And that just like coming out really needs to be the decision of the person, so does your involvement with Pride in any way that forms. So I like to lay that foundation that this is an individual experience, and I want to honor how each individual wants to approach it. Now, true, our access to events this year is going to change. So in Central Florida, we tend to have events twice a year. We have some June events, like a day at Disney and some parties and those types of events at hotels. And then we have our Pride Festival and Parade in October. It's a little cooler, makes sense. So this year, those events that some of you might be familiar with, Gay Days, One Magical Weekend, Girls in Wonderland, those have been postponed. My understanding is that Gay Days, one of the larger ones, has been rescheduled for October. And that is when we have our festival and the Pride Parade. So there is an opportunity to participate in those events potentially down the line. We'll have to keep an eye on the situation, but just to have a little bit of hope that and optimism that there's commitment on behalf of these organizers to keep these events going, and that they're hopefully going to have it later on in the year or at the very latest next year. And I think that's important to hold on to, right? This idea that it's not canceled, right? It's these events are being rescheduled. And it's okay to feel disappointed that you might have been looking forward to these events. I remember my first Pride and how happy and excited I was. And I would have been really disappointed if some of the things I'd been planning on had been canceled or rescheduled, I should say. So it's okay to honor those feelings of like sadness, disappointment, even anger. You know, if maybe you don't agree with how some of the event coordinators are handling it. So take care of yourself and your emotions and reach out for support, and remember that they're being rescheduled and not canceled. And I think that with that idea of cancellation is recognizing that we can never really cancel Pride, because Pride is an internal experience, right? Of recognizing our inherent value and worthiness as human beings, including the facets of our identity that are LGBTQ+. So that's just a little bit of a start into kind of what we can expect and maybe how we can honor Pride as an internal experience. So perhaps this year, during Pride, like during the month of June, we focus less on the external celebration, because maybe that's not available to us as much, and more on our internal growth, you know, as LGBTQ people. I think that deserves some attention as well. You know, looking inside to see maybe how we as individuals have internalized any LGBTQ, gay, or transphobic oppression, and how that could potentially be affecting our identities and self-esteem. And this might reveal some need to work with some professionals or your community to really understand how you can release some of that internalized oppression, because you might not have even really been aware of it until you took a moment to sit with the possibility that you do experience those things, right? Maybe we could dive into uncovering how to be a better ally to LGBTQ people of color, and how we can take action steps around those principles, right? To really be merging, you know, the Pride and the Black Lives Matter movements. Perhaps we can be exploring our experiences within the LGBT community, and how they could be better, healthier, more positive, more loving, more accepting. I know I've had some that have not reflected that, and I want to work towards changing that within our community. And be looking at what role we, our friends, the people within our circles could play in working towards making a better LGBT community for everybody. And that, I think, is really powerful, because as we think about the days when we do emerge more fully out of quarantine and more fully out of social distancing, and we really are just embracing our community in the way that we recall from the past, in large groups and in big social groups, we can ideally come back into a stronger and more accepting community and work towards building a stronger and more accepting community, which I think gives us even more reason to celebrate and honor Pride.
I really appreciate everything that you just kind of said. And I think the biggest thing for me, the one that stood out was I've heard it a lot with everything going on with COVID, you know, a lot of it being just in our daily lives, a lot of it in the last few weeks, starting to talk about the civil rights movement and Black Lives Matter. But a lot of it is about how we're really given an opportunity right now. And I like how you brought up kind of looking at it as an opportunity of how can we kind of make it better than it was before COVID, before 2020 happened. We're going to face a situation where we really do have a lot of opportunity and power within ourselves and externally to make a change. And that change doesn't have to be a big thing. It can just be supporting someone going through whatever they're going through. And so whether it's Black Lives Matter or it's Pride Month, I think that a really big thing for a lot of us, you know, myself included, is wanting to be a better ally and moving forward, wanting to just help everybody actually feel not just that they're equal, but that they matter and that they're loved and they're needed. And I think that you've really touched on a lot of those points. So I want to thank you for saying all that.
Well, thank you. Absolutely. When we think about it, you know, I think we as LGBTQ people know the importance of not going back. We see and are continuing to fight legislation that wants to strip rights, particularly from our transgender community, that wants to deny us again the opportunity to adopt children. We're seeing that in Tennessee and other places. So it is important. We don't want to go back. Back is not the goal. Forward is the goal. Better is the goal. More enlightened and more compassionate and aware of the experiences of other people is the goal. Greater integration. LGBTQ liberation is intrinsically tied to Black liberation, to the liberation of female identifying people. And all of those movements, right, come together. Like when we lift up one group, we're lifting up us and other groups as well, because what we're doing is we're educating people, and we're helping to dismantle systems of oppression that oppress all minority people, not just one particular group. So that is such an important thing to remember, that we want to move forward rather than go back. We want to create a better LGBTQ community. We want to create a more inclusive Pride experience where there is representation within organizations and within the festivals and within these spaces, where there's greater access, right, to people of different abilities or people from different socioeconomic statuses. That's a stronger LGBT community. And to me, that's a stronger Pride.
I definitely agree with you. And so I think one of the things I also wanted to touch on, and you may have touched on it a little bit earlier, but we talked a little bit about with the month of June, it being Pride Month. We're entering the week of the 4-year memorial, essentially 4-year mark since the Pulse tragedy happened in 2016. And so I want to kind of ask you, this week is obviously what's going on in the country right now is hard. And for this week, I think it's going to be another not so easy week as we remember that. How does it being Pride Month kind of play a role, as we want to remember what happened? We want to remember the lives lost, and we want to help anybody who's still recovering from it. Everyone's going to have feelings about it. I guess my question is, how do we kind of incorporate the two of those together, if you understand?
Absolutely, because this is a tightrope that most LGBTQ people experience here in Central Florida, particularly if you were directly impacted by the Pulse nightclub massacre, being in the area at the time, having loved ones who experienced that, and certainly, or being a part of the community response, which I was, and it was a very traumatic event for everyone in Orlando. And so I know and appreciate that for many, it's this up and down of, I want to celebrate. I want to make that stance that love wins and hate doesn't win. And then I also want to remember those 49 people who were lost, and the countless others who were injured, and the countless others who were traumatized. So it can be tricky. And I just want to say that there's no right or wrong way, and please be gracious with yourselves, because navigating those spaces, those feelings, like one moment I'm grieving, the next moment I want to like jump up and dance and be with my friends, like that can create some cognitive dissonance, and it's okay to be a little bit confused or to not know exactly how to navigate that. So lots of self-compassion right now. And June has kind of become this month of grieving for many in the LGBTQ community. And if you're experiencing this grief and this desire to reflect and to remember those we lost, it may not be a celebration you're looking for. That might not be a place where you would feel comfortable. But rather you might be looking for that sense of connection on a more intimate scale with maybe people who understand, perhaps people who were there, fellow survivors, fellow individuals who lost loved ones, your close circle. So it's okay and appropriate to look for the setting that is most conducive to what you need to process and heal through the month of June. And it can be a little bit of both. There's no reason why we cannot celebrate our resiliency as a community. And while we also, we absolutely can have those moments of pause and reflection and respect for those who have lost. And, there are safe ways to gather in small communities. There's platforms like the one we're using for this interview that can also allow for connection. The One Pulse Foundation is hosting a 4-year remembrance ceremony online, similar platform to this Friday, June 12th at 7 p.m. They don't believe it's comfortable and to gather in a larger crowd, because they are trying to keep the community safe from potential risk of COVID-19, but they absolutely want to make sure that there is a remembrance ceremony. So if that is something you want to participate in, you can visit onepulsefoundation.org to get more information about how you can join the remote ceremony. And, you know, just coming together in
Sorry if you just
community.
heard that. That was my dog barking in the background.
Oh, that's okay.
Sorry.
That's one of the funnest things about being a therapist doing online work is I'm getting to meet lots and lots of really awesome cats and dogs. And so that's been one of the highlights for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's just important that, you know, you feel like you can come together with people who understand. I know this month can be very lonely for some people, particularly for survivors, those who lost loved ones. And so I reach out to you. I encourage you to please connect, to not be afraid to ask for connection. We love you. We're here for you. You are not a burden. Doesn't matter how many times you've said, I miss my loved one. That makes sense. Of course you do. And to please reach out for support from friends, from the community, from the mental health community. If you don't have a counselor or someone you're working with, how important it is that you feel like you're not alone during this time.
Thank you so much for saying that. And to kind of add to that, please, if you do feel like you're needing to talk to someone, if you have questions, whatever it may be, please feel free to reach out to the Mental Health Association of Central Florida, because we're wanting to work with you and try to find, try to match you with a counselor or a support group or whatever it is that you're looking for, because we do want everybody to feel connected and loved, and heard at, you know, at just everything that's going on right now, not just with Pride Month, but in general. And so I do appreciate you mentioning that, Lindsay, that, you know, it's, if someone needs to talk to someone, it's okay to, you know, reach out. And I also do want to add, I will put the information for the event that Lindsay mentioned, that's happening on Friday, in our comments below if you are interested in attending it virtually. But I think that that's all the questions I have for you, Lindsay. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me about this. Again, like I said, June, like you described, it is in and of itself, it's a kind of complicated feeling month, I'm sure. So I do really appreciate you, you know, being here, being a representative of the LGBTQ community, and also, you know, just as a counselor, licensed mental health counselor, being here to kind of give your insight and input on the situation.
Well, I appreciate the invite, and I know this is really just touching the surface. So I do just reinforce that message of reaching out to community and to support, and using this time to engage in lots and lots of self-care for our community. It can be difficult when we're going through challenging times like this, whether we're furloughed, whether we're out there, you know, and protesting and focusing on the needs of others in a greater movement. Those are all critically important. But don't forget yourself. You can't pour from an empty vessel. So make sure that you are taking good and loving care of yourself, and just know that this June is a unique experience, and that we will be back together very, very soon, celebrating our community.
Well, thank you so much for saying all of that, Lindsay. I really appreciate you taking the time. If you have any questions about anything, please feel free to reach out to us in the comments below. We're going to include Lindsay's Facebook page information for her practice, so you can take a look there as well. But again, thank you so much for being here, Lindsay. Thank you to all of you for tuning in, as always. If there's a topic you would like us to discuss, anything like that, reach out in the comments below, send us a message, whatever it may be. And just thank you guys so much for making this possible. And you all have a great day. Thank you.